Sauna nila, 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 sauna nila, rukagmi. Sauna nila, 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 sauna nila, voyach. Good morning, everybody. And now my cheeks are nice and rosy from having to start off with a song. I am starting from a big book because today I'm going to be highlighting 10 biggest books in my collection. And I've seen several people do this and use different guidelines. And I'm going to be explaining that this is basically an excuse to highlight books that I never get to highlight on the channel otherwise, because they're not like books you read. They're like reference books. So, welcome everybody to a tag about big books. Please subscribe if you're new here and you like book tags, because that's what we're doing. We're here all week. My name is Margaret Pennard. I'm an author and a reader, and I read lots of different types of books. And so this is going to let me nerd out in some of my maybe niche nerdery categories that you haven't seen before. So tune in. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If you've never heard of these types of books before, feel free to ask for more information. I am sometimes known as the queen of books you've never heard of, so don't feel any kind of awkward to ask a question. I am going to have a question of the day today, which is, what's your favorite reference book? Maybe you'll do this tag later and you'll get to show us all about them, or maybe you just want to drop a comment and have one book to say instead of 10. Either way, welcome. And we're going to dive on in here. So hello to everyone in the chat. Gareth, Team Rewatch, because he's at a parents' weekend. Nice to see you. Eva is here. Hey. And Ven is here. Hello. And we like Big Boo. Books. Oh, there we go. Books. Oh, yeah. Catch the song. Thank you. So this is going to be my first book. Basically, the tag is talk about your 10 biggest books. And of course, I didn't get out and measure and calculate. I'm not going to be that super strict about it. But I found out through doing this that a lot of my books are odd sizes. Like they don't all fit the industry standard, which I thought was interesting. But I took the 10 biggest, and there, of course, there's going to be a bonus because it's me. But books that represented different interest areas. And so one of them is a songbook. Songbooks are typically pretty big so that you can read the notes. And the song that I started out the stream with is a famous one from Ila or Isla. Or if you live in San Luis Obispo, Islay, because we actually have a street one over from the one I grew up on, spelled Islay, and we pronounce it Islay. And of course, now I've lost my note for the song that I just sang. Where'd it go? Let's see. There it is, page 40. I know it's so far in here. This is a book that I picked up on vacation, on a research trip. And it gives you a song, gives you 4 sharps, whatever key that is. I don't know. I'm not that good at music. And it gives you the Gaelic on one side and the English on the other. I just really love this. It also has some pictures in here with sort of like poetic lyrics up at the top to show you photographs of the island. It's a great souvenir, as well as just like learning Gaelic a little bit, and remembering, if you ever got someone who knew music, remembering the tunes that you might have heard in the pubs or the concerts. So I've really liked it, even though I don't really have expertise in the subject. The Battle of Grinnert Sands. So just lots of like very picturesque and memorable things. And so I've kept this. I brought it to a camping Kaylee, so I still have the note on there of paying people back for the camping charges. So yeah, Gaelic Songs of Isla, Gaelic and English music songbook, and really cool find. This is smuggled back in my suitcase, so you can imagine I come back with a very overweight suitcase. Let's see. I'm going to catch up on the chat so that it still makes sense. I think this is Eva's answer to the question of the day. My son loves reference books so much. I'm not sure I have a favorite. I did just buy 2 encyclopedias. One of cats, one of dogs, both for the kiddo for the holiday. Ooh, okay, we'll keep it secret. That's fun. Exactly. Kappa is here. Hello. Got to go grocery shopping, but we'll listen later. Team Rewatch. Excellent. And we have Alan here. Evening for Alan. Hello. And we have Julie here. Hello, hello. Julie's answer to the question of the day: I splurged on a beautiful Rand McNally World Atlas because I love maps. Ooh, then you're going to love one of my choices. It's in the second half of the show. But yes, I do love an atlas. I do love an atlas. So I wanted to say thank you to Gareth for tagging me. The tag was originally created by Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics, so his name is up here. Gareth is the one who tagged me, and Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads had a really interesting version. So when I was talking about why you choose the biggest rather than calculating the exact number of centimeters, whatever, his rules are kind of what guided me. And I have tagged 7 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in the comments, folks that I thought would have interesting big books. And I'll get to my predictions about what they might share towards the end of the program. But let's continue here. So the next one I have is an antique. Let me get this out of the way so it's not right over my face. It's an antique. It's from 1902, 1903, 1904. And so it's a little hard to display here. As you can see, the binding's pretty much gone. And it's this big. It's like twice as big as my face. It's called Bibby's Quarterly, an illustrated journal of country and home life. And you could tell the cover has, what is it? It's like cardboard, but it's got colors stamped into it. I'm not sure how it's done. Obviously, it's an old process, and I don't think it's used much anymore. But this is like a thick bind up of several quarterlies. I would assume there's 4 per year, and we go from 1902 to 1904. It's got lots of cool illustrations. So if you think of like Saturday Evening Post, that's kind of the feel that this one gives, like this. Let's see if I can do this carefully, right? Cool little illustrated. I really don't want to make it worse. And it says Country Life. I looked up the publisher and the companies that put this together. Baby's Quarterly was published out of Liverpool. So I think it was sort of like a all of England Country Life. The company made seed cakes, soap, and feed cakes, some kind of like industrial product for feeding animals on farms. And so they had an interest in also having books and things to read for their customers. And so that's how they sort of went from advertising probably to covering all these other parts of life, kind of like Ladies' Home Journal, you know? So anyway, I found this in an old used bookstore, and I think they were probably throwing it away. It's just fascinating details that you could really use in a historical fiction. Hints on calf rearing. You've got like your show steers that like are the bigger description. They're so huge. I read a whole article on lampus, which is like a protuberance that horses would have on the top of their mouth if they were eating too much hard feed. People used to cauterize it, burn it off, and that was not the thing to do. And they found out how to fix it. It's just really interesting things. And you've also got literary supplements, and like look at the 4 columns across and like all these photos. It's just really, really cool. So endlessly fascinating, not useful day to day, but historical nerds just eat this up, right? So really interesting. So that's my antique version that I still hang on to because it's interesting. Ben says, I love that. So pretty. Yeah. And Alan says Country Life is still a monthly magazine in the UK that has a similar look. Yeah, and they're big format, but they're paper instead of hardcover, I would say. Maybe they just did hardcover for this one because it's a bind up. But yeah, I've seen Country Life also has, I think, its own YouTube channel now. I think I was just looking at one because they did a house tour that was really cute. So fun, 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 fun. All right, number 3, biggest books. We have my inspiration station. So I have several of these, maybe like half a shelf. This is Small Spaces for Modern Living. And as you can see, they put bookshelves in their decorating as everyone should. So before I had this marvel behind me, I would just dream of like, how could I fit in bookshelves and how could I have a library feel and a study feel and feel locked away in the world of books. And I would look into books like this that had a lot of modern photos and especially like ways to arrange things, stairs and landings, like not something I have to worry about here. What else? Connecting spaces, optical illusions, design principles, reflected light, just like dreaming about how you curate your space. And I really like that as a quiet, introspective, uplifting, reflective topic. So I have enjoyed lots of these, and several of these big hardback books are actually how to decorate with books, but I went with this one because it was the biggest one. So there we go. I just enjoy looking at those. And as Greg at Ghost Readers in the Sky likes to point out, the adult picture books continue to inspire. So I don't have a formal series for highlighting those, but that is one of my adult picture books, and it's just inspiration for people's homes and living spaces. Let's see if I've forgotten anything so far. So we've got the Gallic music. I've got the Country Life magazine. I've got inspiration and adult picture books. Okay, we're caught up. And yeah, glossy paper. Okay, so like a magazine. Gotcha. And we've got a Stargater. Hello, hello. We're on book number 4 of my 10 biggest books. This comes off the cookbook shelf because it's sort of between like nature books and cookbooks. The Complete Book of Herbs, or Herbs, a practical guide to growing and using herbs. It's a little hard to see there. The font goes over the herbs. Leslie Bremnes. And this is, again, big book. But what I loved about it, this is a used book I picked up, is besides the photos that they have, which show like what you're looking at here, how you design a garden, what's most useful, they also have these beautiful inspirational looking illustrations where they talk about how you could arrange things to maximize space, how you could arrange things in the backyard. Then they've got, break it down to the plant itself, what it looks like in its leaves, its stems, when it's dried, when it's got seeds, and really detailed naming, nomenclature, cultivation, uses, cosmetic, medicinal. Often in the little paragraph at the top, they'll have what people used to use it for. I've got lots of different books on herbs because I love learning about what people used to use the plants for. A lot of times I think it's wishful thinking, like the doctrine of signatures, I think it's what it's called. But sometimes it actually does apply and people still use it for that purpose. So I just really neat. And I have used some of those like old wives' tales from a different book in my historical fiction, which you see casually displayed behind me. So yeah, another beautiful reference book that I dip into here and there. So I never get to like share I've read it because I'm always reading it. And then book number 5, we have one that I'm about to read, Housing the Nation by Rizzoli Publishers out of New York. And I highlight that because they have a bookstore in New York City that is gorgeous, that is very fancy. It's kind of like Daunt booksellers, like the wood, the sparkle, the the second story, you know, like the ladders and stuff. And just really, really pretty. And that's the vibe. I didn't get this there. I didn't bring it back from New York City. I got this actually in San Luis Obispo from an architecture bookshop. I don't know how long the architecture bookshop is going to be open because it was pretty small and it was like tacked on to another architecture firm meeting space. And it didn't look like they were that busy, but I hope they're still there. They had a lot of really interestingly curated books. And this one, rather than featuring modern architecture, which is not my jam, was actually talking about the problem of affordable housing the nation, social equity architecture, and the future of affordable housing. And since I have big gaps in my knowledge about this, I thought, well, designers and people in the process would probably have a lot of information to share. So this is a lot of different contributors and a lot of pictures and resource material talking about, I'm guessing, the process of development and redevelopment and, you know, what's worked and what they got to, I guess, dig out. Like if you're peeling potatoes and you've got eyes in the potatoes and you got to dig those out because they're not edible. What in the housing process are we not digging out? I think there's a lot of rotten stuff you need to get rid of. So that's my little opinion on that, having not read it yet, but hoping to read it before the end of the year. And I will say I've got 2 points from that. One, I got it in San Luis Obispo, so I haven't read it and it's coming back home with me, which is funny. And 2, housing and activism in that respect is part of my fall curriculum. So if you didn't see that video, there's like a trend, and I'm taking part in a loose way to try to focus on 3 different classes basically to educate myself on things, and activism is one of them. And so this is a huge topic, especially in Portland, especially in the US. And so this is one of the books that I figured I would focus on, and you'll get an update on that at some point when I settle down. So I am making progress though on photos, on plant identification, and on activism education. So pretty cool. So that's halfway down. Let me see. From the curriculum and the San Luis Obispo connection. There we go. We're moving on to number 6, which is ta-da! San Luis Obispo architecture, which I didn't get at the architecture shop either, but was a gift. And brief architectural history. You could see without the light reflected there, we've got some of the iconic spaces and pictures in San Luis Obispo County. We got Morro Bay. I think that's the Pismo Beach Pier. Maybe the dunes. I don't know what that building is down in the corner. It's got a big bird in front of it though. But I was just leafing through it, and we don't have my house in here, but we definitely have houses that I grew up with and walked by every day, and you know, still there. And they categorize them on like a timeline of different categories. So let's see. Modern office, elementary schools. Yeah, so there's our drive-in, Sunset Drive-in, that's still there miraculously. This is the modern section. We've got a revival section. And what's really funny, I found, is that there's a, so American, you guys, you Brits will laugh at this. There's a revivals of revivals section, which toast, we're cooked is what it makes me want to think of, because that's not my favorite. It's the stuff that like tries to look like something but doesn't try very hard. So, you know, you've got like your fancy hotels and you've got your cookie cutter development, and I don't know, it's just not very impressive. Like the stuff I grew up with from the 90s, it looks sort of Adobe-ish but isn't. Not impressed. Copy of a copy is not going to be my thing. Modern formal. So there's actually Deco, I would say, the Fremont Theater that's still miraculously there. That's pretty cool. Right close to my school. And the the stacks at Morro Bay are iconic, even if they're, sort of an eyesore. They're a good judge for where you are if you're out kayaking on the coast. Yeah, Tudor revival. I don't know about these revivals. I don't know how Tudor that looks, but I love thinking about architectural details and looking at a building and being able to recognize different things from different eras. I get pretty mixed up with the modern revivals of revivals because people have just thrown stuff together so much that it's like, I don't know. I got the chance to take a really cool architectural walking tour here in Portland. A month or so ago, and they read off, when the building was built and what features sort of were of the era. And it was so cool. Like, I definitely took notes, and there were some in my neighborhood that I was really interested in. So yeah, I it's like plan identification, maybe not as useful architecture, but just like knowing. Ben says, I love how varied these are. Yeah. California architecture is going to be quite varied because it's so late. Oh, eyesores, a few of them in the UK. Yeah. And then the massive concrete brutalist monoliths come to mind in some places. Yeah. When I read that Oxford book, it had a section on the look of Oxford and talking about the different architectural eras, and that's the one where I put in that quote about the younger son that was coming home to poison the air. I just thought that was so funny. Okay, so number 7. We're on number 7, and we're going to get really big and bulky. Speaking of monoliths, don't forget to put your answer to the question of the day if you have a favorite reference book. Can we guess what this is? I'll wait. I'll do my little above my heart or workout for the day. What do you think this is? It's not a cat encyclopedia. Well, that's a good thought. The suspense. Oh, yep. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip from my pear apple cider here. Julie's got it. It's a dictionary. It is not a pyramid building block. So what's cool about this is that it's a double dictionary. It's a French-English and English-French dictionary, and I've had this for a very long time. And I haven't consulted it for a very long time either. So it's been sitting over there next to my tea section in the cookbooks. And yeah, it's big, and I still have it. So it's pretty miraculous if you know the history of my moving around. So normally a dictionary for one language has words and meanings of words, right? This one has 2 dictionaries in one because you look up a French word and it will give you the English definition, the English translation, and then the English definition, I think. Sort of strange. I picked out an example to show you guys, which was, which one? Oh, here we go. So if you're a French person and you're pretty fluent in English, but there's still things that, like, culturally you don't understand what they mean. For example, you can turn to M in the English section and look up Mr. Right. What is Mr. Right? It's informal noun. L'homme idéal, le prince charmant. As in, she's waiting for Mr. Right. Elle attend le prince charmant, or l'homme de ses rêves. So I just love that you can get idioms like that translated. So that's really, really useful. And the other one I thought was funny. I wrote it down because I was just sort of leafing through. So another idiom in English, as a French person, you would look up and go, what the heck does that mean? Out of context. Pork barrel legislation. Noun, American political. Action menée par un parlementaire pour favoriser des intérêts locaux dans sa circonscription. Meaning, actions directed by a representative in government to favor the local interests of his district or her district. And so I just thought that was lovely. So, as I said, I haven't used it in a long time, but if I was reading French novels, perhaps, and there was something like Mr. Right in French, I could look it up. Let's see what we have in French. Déménagement, démarrer, démasquer. See if they have like an idiom. Demi-lune. Half moon. Démissionner means to quit. I didn't look up an example in French. Déclarer, déclaratoire, décocher. Décochage in metallurgy, shaking out. Right, so I'm never going to learn anything metallurgical, but if I needed to, it's there. So over 300,000 references and 500,000 translations. Larousse. This is a giant of the dictionary world. So bien impressionnant. I love that it's there and that I can consult it. So that's fun. All right, so another reference, my 8th book is going to be, oh yes, the Atlas, I think as Julie said. So the Atlas is not as big. This is a specialized atlas of the British Empire. So the rise and fall of the greatest empire the world has ever known. And if you think it hasn't fallen, just wait until I get one of these for America. Yeah, so we've got different ages, voyages and plantations, the age of free enterprise, the heyday of empire, the world wars, the retreat from empire. And so it just divides it up into these different keys and legends of maps, exploration of the world, and has some explanatory things in between. I'm sure they're not quite PC anymore, but again, I'm not reading it from cover to cover. So like just old maps with little excerpts and explanations are pretty fun. India, Riches to Raj. Sir Thomas Roe. I don't know who Thomas Roe is. Adam Smith. I do know who he is. The Expansion of the Empire from 1815. I just like seeing different snapshots in time because the maps change, and it's pretty cool to, I don't know, just be aware of that and like people's information and world changing. And I figured this would probably be good for research purposes. Oh, we've got a Benjamin Disraeli cartoon here. Just fun context that they put in. Egypt finds its voice. It's, this is not something we learn in school in America. Basically, the empire is us, and we don't learn anything before that or after that or right next to us, as in the Caribbean. So there's big gaps. And I think something like an atlas is pretty useful, even if you do have to sort of go, okay, well, this is written in the times before DEI. What does it say? The year is? Ooh, look at that. Facts on File, New York and Oxford. That's a really pretty frontispiece. 1989. 1989. So yeah, that's probably got some interesting illustrations. Jim is here. Hello, Jim. His answer is an atlas. Atlases in general. Yeah. There we go. You came in on the right book then. That was number 8. Number 9 is another big hefty one. I'm going to ask you what it is again. See if anyone recognizes it from the binding or the red cloth. It's got an insert. It's got a supplement here. See if a little peek. What do you think this is? 10 biggest books. What else would I have besides a French-English dictionary? Guesses. I get to work out again. I'll give you a few seconds here. And then have a little sip of my juice. All right, now I got to put it down. Any guesses? In case you were wondering, I'm still that kid that likes to play guessing games where they hold all the answers. So apologies if that is skeezing anybody out. Julie's guess is a French English thesaurus. That's very clever. Nope. And Jim says English dictionary like chambers. I don't know what that is. Chambers. Is that like an OED? It is not. See if that makes any difference to anybody. So this I also picked up at a used bookstore that no one wanted over here. Burke's Peerage and Baronetage from like 1978. They don't make these anymore. They stopped. I looked this up. Okay, so when I first read historical romance books, they would talk about Debrett's. And I went, Debrett's. I look it up, years and years ago. Debrett's is now a very long-standing brand that concerned itself with etiquette and politeness and basically forms of address. So Debrett's was to let you know what titles people had, etc. Burke's is a little younger. I think Debrett's is 1700s, Burke's is 1826. And this is more genealogical. So it gives all the peers, all the baronets in the UK and their history. So like the first time the title was given, if it went extinct, if it came back, and all like the tracing of the heirs down through the centuries. So hence a huge old thing, right? They don't make print copies anymore. I think they stopped in 2003, and Debrett's stopped printing their old version in like 2019. I may have those reversed, but I looked it up and I was very interested. But they have expanded in their etiquette side of the business, whereas Burke's is still online only just for genealogy purposes. But I have an example here to show you what it would look like. It takes a bit of deciphering. When I was growing up, I thought it was fun to read Easy Ad and Photo Ad. And maybe you know what those are if you're in America. In Britain or elsewhere in the world, Easy Ad and Photo Ad are basically like the classifieds, really cheap paper, and you paid for a small ad, and like if you're selling your car or you're looking for a leaf blower, this is what you would pick up and look for, right? And you had to abbreviate things in a sort of shorthand, and so you had to know how to decipher the shorthand. So just like I did as a kid looking for horses for sale as a horse girl in my early teens, this has its own shorthand to decipher, and I'm going to try to give you an example of this. So let's see. And I'll tell you how I came up with the example and how hard it was to find, actually. Burke's Peerage, says Jim, is a study guide for a stud guide. Is a stud guide or study guide for the aristocracy? Yeah, it is huge. Hi, Laura. You could use it as a weapon. I suppose I could. It's sort of hard to throw, however, so it'd have to be a pretty near-range weapon. Ben says, pretty sure Pratchett satirizes Burke's Peerage in Discord and renamed it Twerp's Peerage to fit the world. Discworld, not Discord. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So here's my journey to finding an example. I follow a channel called Urban Tiger, who is this guy who goes to different landmark trust properties and does like a little video about how nice they are and like the history and the surrounding fields and whatnot. And it's pretty neat. And he was at one that was called the Library in Devon. And so I thought of Jack, who loves to go down to Devonshire. And this library, along with an orangery, is all that's left of this huge manor from the family called the Rolls, Rolle. And I looked it up so that I could get the right spelling, and they are not in here, funnily enough. But then I did some more sleuthing on Wikipedia, because Wikipedia has some of the family, but not all, because some had titles and some didn't. So the Rolls, as a titled family, as a wealthy aristocratic landowning family in Devon, only came about, this is where it wraps back into historical fiction, only came about after the dissolution of the monasteries because one of them was a lawyer, like our friend Matthew Shardlake from C.J. Sampson's series, a lawyer in the Court of Common Pleas around the time of the dissolution, and he snapped up a bunch of land in Devon and became the second biggest landowner in Devon after the Courtneys, I think. And so if you've got the land at a cheap price, then you're set for several centuries. However, they did die out at the beginning of the 19th century because they didn't have heirs. So I think only 2 of them had titles, and they died out because they didn't have heirs. So one got it, and then the nephew of that person got it, and then it went out again. It went extinct. So that's what I sleuthed out. And then what I found on Wikipedia is that the baronetcy of the Rolls with the Devonshire properties was whatever it's called, united, and this is the shorthand that I didn't remember, in a different title, which is, I think, from, oh no, not the Courtneys, de Clintons. So de Clinton is like from the 13th century, and now they hold the sort of lines. I think of it as like balloons, and they're holding the strings of the balloons of all these titles that have gone ownerless, and so now they're holding on to all these different things, the Clinton family. And so if I look up, did I put a bookmark? I did. The de Clintons, just for some spice here, you can see how small the writing is. Ooh, it's like legalese, right? So that's where we start with the Clintons, and it's like all the whole page, and then the next stops with Clitheroe and like the little whatever it's called, a coat of arms. So because this came out in 1978, it starts with the present holder of the title, the 22nd Baron Clinton, Gerard Neville Mark Fane Trefusis being a Cornish name that I suppose is kept in the family, of Maxstock, County Warwick, JP, meaning Justice of the Peace, 1963. I suppose Justice of the Peace since 1963. Devon, assumed by deed poll 1959, the additional surname of Trefusis. So they're saying that's important too. He was born in 1934, and S, on termination of abeyance by writ of summons. Does S stand for? It's not born, it's not died. Succeeded. There we go. Succession. Succeeded on termination of abeyance in 1965. Married 1958, Nicola Harriet, eldest daughter of late Major Charles Robert Purdon Coote of Ballyclue Castle and Bearforest, County Cork. C. Coote, Baronet. And has issue. And then they talk about the kids. And that's the type of language that they go on. So they talk about the present holder, and then they start with lineage. John de Clinton, First Lord Clinton, son and heir of Thomas de Clinton of Amington and Maxstock, County Warwick, blah, 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 blah. Nephew of Geoffrey de Clinton, Lord Chamberlain to Henry I. Oh my gosh, they still haven't reached a date. Anyway, 1298 is the first date of a title. Whew. So if you like rabbit holes and you like genealogy and like you're into visiting historical properties and like knowing where they came from, is kind of fun. Kind of fun to connect all those dots. And you can when you get a free book like this, because who in America is going to know the historical value of a huge tome like this? Not anybody in Portland. So I made out like a bandit. Oh boy. Okay, so stud guide to check out who your offspring is paired with. Well, I mean, there's so many possibilities, right? I don't know that that would narrow it down too much. Yeah, stud guides for horses is previous. It's like past. This, I don't know how that would help for your offspring. Jim says, why did the aristocrat sleep with a copy of Burke's Peerage under his pillow? Because he wanted to rise in the morning feeling a little more elevated. Ha. This requires the phrase elevated to a title. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. It's a dad joke. Dissident Knight. Hello. I am on number 9. That was number 9. We've got 10th book, and then I have a bonus, of course. All right. So 10th book is a little more a little more grounded. So this is not as thick, but it's still quite big. This is, let me read it, Kilbarchan and the Handloom Weavers, the Kilbarchan Toon Series, number 4, published by the Renfrewshire Local History Forum. So this is a local history, I guess you could call it a quarterly, but I think they probably do it once a year. Kind of like a local genealogy society, but it's historical. And so this is on the topic of handloom weavers. And we've got pictures and we've got, facsimiles of ads, and we've got, just like cool photos of places, village spots, sports teams, just how the community lived. And I love that. John Houston's loom in the Smashot cottage in Paisley. So there's like an old loom setup, which is pretty cool. I visited a museum that talked about how people did hand loom weaving in the 19th century as it was dying out. And part of this is all backstory to my current series. So I actually used a lot of the details in this and some of the names in this to feather the nest of Renfrewshire and Ayrshire outside of Glasgow for Orla. So in this book, as I was reading this and sort of absorbing the details of the era, some of that sort of came back through. And I didn't talk about handloom weavers particularly, but I loved the area. I loved the museums. People I met were really nice. And I love local history that I can take tiny threads, pun intended, and weave into family stories, family type stories. So this is particularly local, particularly personal, and another niche of my nerdery. Let me catch up again to see if I've missed anything. Toon history, background, and it's for Orla. Yes, the surrounds of Ayrshire. Y'all make it very complicated to try to figure out counties in England because they're constantly reorganized. And I did look at several of the videos from Mapmen to try to figure out, like, at this time, what was this called? What would people in the area still call it? Because I don't think Renfrewshire is its own county or shire anymore, or shire anymore. But, like, it's still in names. And so that was important to sort of incorporate. Yeah. So that's my 10. Yeah. We like to confuse things. Also, Mapmen are great. Yes. Okay. Excellent. So last chance for question of the day. If this has brought up a type of reference book, we've got local history, we've got genealogy, we've got atlases, we've got dictionaries and translations, we've got architecture, we've got plants, we've got contributing stories to activism issues. We've got inspiration for home decor. We've got antique catalogs and songbooks. So all of those are represented in my little interests that I love to dip in and out of. And what's cool is I have a current read that is a big book. So this is one I got in Canada that I'm currently working on slowly. And it's called Drawdown, the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming, edited by Paul Hawken. And basically, this is the communication output of a huge amount of studies collated from a huge number of scientists about efforts to combat climate change and what's the word I'm looking for? Minimize carbon dioxide equivalent going out into the atmosphere. There we go. While also, nope, they don't have adaptation in here. They just have mitigation. So they're looking at all the different areas. Food is a big one. Energy is a big one. I finished the energy section and I just started on the food section. I'm sure we'll do land use, and there's a transport section. Land use. efficiency. So there's some familiar categories in here, but it's pretty technical. So I'm going through it pretty slowly, and I don't think I'm taking it with me down for the holidays because it's big. But it's just a neat science bite size to think about. And, it's the kind of thing where you could go in and read about one subject because it'll get like a 2-page spread in here. And then they'll reference who did the study. And then you can look it up online and follow them or read their newsletter. So it's also like activism related, of course, because me, I'm a climate activist. So yeah. That is my 10 biggest books plus one. And here are the people I'm tagging and what I think their nerdery will highlight. So I got 6 people. Jim, you're on the chopping block because I didn't see you had a version of this. And I think you're going to have a big book that has to do with Matchbox cars. We'll see. Book Chat with Pat doesn't have a version of this out yet. So I'm wondering if she'll have a big tome on education theory, maybe. I've got Dave at Book Blather because he might have a bunch of reference materials that are legal related. That would be fun to see him try to heft up in front of the camera in front of Olive's face. Then you are tagged because I think you might have big format books about gaming because a lot of these role-playing games have like workbooks. I thought that'd be cool to see. I'm tagging Angela's Bookcase, who's an Australian booktuber, because I think she does a lot of great work on like healing. And I think, again, more like workbooks might be in there. We'll see. And then Roy Reads Anything, who's just come off a very successful round of Victorian videos for Victober. So I'm wondering if he's got a big format Victorian related book. So those are my 6 taggies. And I hope you find some, brush off the dust and become reacquainted with some big format books you might have forgotten about in your own library, because I like a gratitude post. I like a search your shelves, shop your shelves type of tag. So that's what we're turning this into. All right, so let's see, catching up here on the chat. And then we'll talk about current reads, and that'll be us. I have... Oh, Ven says mine tends to be ancient history. Okay. The Babylonians by H.W.F. Staggs is probably my favorite, and it's a folio edition as a bonus. Read it back to front a while back. Ooh. Does it have lots of pictures? Like imagined civilization about the Babylonians? That's pretty cool. Jim says the 1973 Local Government Scotland Act created a system of 9 two-tier regions and 3 islands areas, and this system completely replaced local government counties and burghs in 1975. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it because it's modern. So it's not what I'm writing about, unless I drastically change my my writing area. Interesting. Good Google, Jim. Thank you. Stargator says, thanks for sharing. It was fun watching and seeing your excitement. Thank you for coming by. Ben says it has picture and photos as well from sites. That's cool. So it's like archaeological. That is fun. That's cool. I remember reading books like more geared toward kids that had like cartoon excavations. And I mean like illustrated, not cartoon, obviously. So you could see like into Troy or imagined, ancient cities. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat. So you know that I'm currently reading this. You also may know that I have a buddy read going on of Walking with the Wind, which is a good read. I'm about halfway through with Tiffany. And the legendary Fry Bread Drive-In, which I'm reading with Rachel of RK Stumbling Bear. So some really good reads. I have just wrapped up the last library book that I'm going to read. I'm going to return the rest of them while I go out of town so that I don't end up on the hook for books while I'm out of town and end up late and pissing someone off. So how about you guys? What are you currently reading that you love? Pear and apple cider. I got to finish this. It's starting to get like mother growth in it. So I got to finish it before I leave. By the way, we were talking about laughing, and I brought up this character and had to look it up. It's Muttley. I didn't remember. It's not Natasha and someone, but yeah, that's a fun little cartoon character because of the way he laughs. Oh no! Okay, Ben is not currently reading anything. I can't believe that, but he has a poll up for people to pick his next read because he can't decide. All right, excellent. Well, I'll go over there and see what you have on the docket. But those are my current reads. It is Wednesday, and so my next stream is Friday, and that is going to be focused on cozy translated fiction. So my latest read is actually cozy translated fiction, and I'm rounding up all the books. I think there's 22 now that I've read, and a few that are on my TBR that are cozy and translated mainly from Japan and Korea, mainly Japan. So if that seems like a good mood for your reading, and I think it does for autumnal reads because cozy and autumn go together, then tune in on Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and that will be my last one here. Oh, that's a fun title. Ben says, I finished a book called Shy Trans Banshee today, which was fun. Nice. Stargater says, not sure about loving yet, but starting the Cider House Rules. Aha. I'm guessing this is part of the John Irving group read-along because I see several people holding up John Irving books. I read, this is going to break Pat's heart. I read not the Cider House Rules. Owen Meany, Prayer for Owen Meany in high school as required reading and did not enjoy. The teacher clearly loved it, and I really liked the teacher, but it just was not my style. So I haven't been a John Irving fan since then. I mean, there's plenty of other books, so I'm not losing out. Oh, okay. My book just came in while you chatted. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining my 10 biggest books. I hope that I can see my taggies do this tag within the next month or two. I know you probably have to be at home and, safely hold up these books. Do not hurt yourself. Do not drop them on your toes. Be careful. But I'm just looking forward to learning about other people's little nerdery that they may not get to show or share on their channel because they're reference books. So that was my particular take. And yeah, feel free to do your own take on this tag and tag me in the comments so that I know to check it out. So thanks everyone, and happy Native American Heritage Month. Hope your next read is a wonderful one. Take care of yourself and diversify that reading list. Okay. Bye everyone. See you Friday.